Welcome to the Game of Stones podcast. My name is Joe Alva, and we are going to be talking today about mental health for entrepreneurs in terms of also maintaining your balance, your mental state of mind, no matter what it is you do. It's necessary. Everybody who's endured being an entrepreneur and self-employed has had a lot of challenges and struggles, and it takes a lot of character, a lot of strong will in order to make it through the tough times, which you'll usually find that the accomplishments come right after the hard times. And so today's guest is somebody very special to me, my older sister, Michelle Alva, even though nobody really believes that you're my older sister, who was a huge impact in my life. And today she's a physical therapist with also a very much natural healing background. She began to explore that world, I'd say, over 20 years ago, probably, right?
More than 28 years ago.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We really
I'm
are
50 wonderful.
Yeah, nice. You see that? Not one gray hair. That's awesome. But yeah, we're going to get started and talk a little bit about her background, my background, and how you got into... So what is it today that you call yourself as far as like your title of your main focus? Because I know that you're involved in a lot of things, and the general idea is basically mental self-help, self-improvement, self-love, improving your self-esteem.
I tell people that I'm a facilitator of deeper connection, because ultimately that's what I feel we're all looking for. And I want to thank you, Joe, for having me on your podcast and for caring so much about others, that you want to give powerful information out to entrepreneurs, because I know it's not easy. It
could be a lonely road. So yeah, so tell us a little bit about your journey. So I know it, so I could kind of probably speak to it a little bit, but went to FIU in Miami in the 90s.
I graduated with a physical therapy degree 28 years ago, and I started yoga when I was 17 years old in high school.
Right.
Just happened to go to a yoga class, and I feel that influenced me a lot. And I also worked in a restaurant that was vegetarian at age 15. And so I started to live a more healthy lifestyle as a teenager, and considering how, our dad left when I was 15, and our mom worked 3 jobs, and it was kind of a lonely teenage years, and I had to work to help pay for the bills. And so I feel as though yoga, meditation helped me to get through physical therapy school also, because it was a lot of tests and studying and biochemistry. And so if I didn't have these tools that I'm going to share more today, I don't feel I would have been thriving in my wellness at age 50 wonderful.
Yeah, and to your point, we also were really lucky that we got to work as young teenagers in a really nice part of town. So we got lucky there. If any of you folks are from Southeast Florida, Miami area, we grew up and she worked at 15 years old, you were, when you got a job as a hostess at the Unicorn.
Yeah.
So this health food restaurant, and it was also, they had a supermarket, was one of the first premier, and this was like in the early 90s. It was called the Unicorn Village. And the Unicorn was on an intercoastal marina, the restaurant, as well as it was a part of a complex called the Waterway Shops. And she worked as a hostess at but celebrities would go here, because this was back in the day when organic foods were, number one, they were really organic. Number two, the organic foods were also something that was very niche. It was something very exclusive. And so we used to have, like, what were some of the celebrities that would go into the restaurant all the time?
Madonna was there.
Madonna,
the lead singer of REO's Speedwagon.
Okay, no, REM.
REM.
Yeah, Michael Stipes. What did you say? Who else? You met Katie Lang.
The Miami Vice.
I don't know if people remember Katie Lang.
Yeah, there was
Philip Michael Thomas, the Miami Vice guys.
Yeah.
Brian Norcross. Remember, he was big in Miami for the weather guy, the Hurricane Andrew.
And we constantly were there, so we were eating healthy food.
Right, we were lucky. We were eating really healthy, organic stuff all through high school. That helped me out a lot, because I did wrestling while I was working there. So she got me a job when I was 14. I was 14. Yeah. You got me they bent the rules, because I had to be 15, and they got me a job at 14. at the supermarket. So I became a rookie bag boy. So I was a bagger, or they called it a bagger. So I would bag all the dead bodies that the CEO. No, I'm kidding. I would bag the groceries for everybody, and I became head bagger, and then I became cashier, and then stock boy, and then
Then you were a
produce,
runner.
then deli. So, but she was 19 at that point, so she's already working there 4 years. And I have to give you props because our older brother, he had a Ford Mustang GT stick shift, little hot rod car that my mom co-signed for him when he was working at Publix. But then after like a year,
He stopped paying for it.
he just stopped paying for it. And my sister, who's just turned 16, she's like, I got a job as a hostess and I need transportation, so I'll take over the car payments, which helped my mom.
I used to take the bus.
She was like, you were, I gotta say, you were like a superhero for me, because she stepped up and was like almost like a second mom at 16.
I had to, yeah.
Paying her bills, paying the insurance. And it was funny because she'd always like keep her little checkbook and her little ledger, and she'd write it in which it's funny how there's funny stories that stick in your mind. But I remember going to Eckerd's Drugs, right, which is like CVS, okay, and I'm like, what are we doing here? She's like, I gotta pick up some razor blades or whatever, right? And you know, the pink like disposable Gillettes or whatever. And at the time, this is like early 90s, I'm like, what are you doing? She whips out her checkbook. It's like 75 cents. She's writing a check for 75.
I had to grow up really fast, and
Yeah.
it's just the way it had to be. But it's taken me my whole life. You know, I was telling Joe about healing and how so many of us, we have tough childhoods. And then eventually, I feel like once we hit that midlife crisis, right? Usually we have it, we soften, we surrender, we start to relax more because we've been living kind of guarded or so stressed out.
Well, in a hurry, like I always felt like in a hurry to get to that next step, in a hurry to get independent financially, in a hurry to get out of poverty, or, you know, I wouldn't say we were like poverty, but we were definitely lower middle class. Now, we weren't born like that. Our parents actually, they did very well for themselves. They came in the 60s from South America, from Peru. We were all born in Los Angeles, California, and we grew up in a very nice part of LA because we had two parents with a good income. And then when they split up, that's when the tough times came. But we were traveling to Italy back and forth every year. We were going to South America every year. We went, when I was 6, I went to Machu Picchu, which is ironic because now I cut stone. Like I make machines that cut stone. And I was in front of these boulders and stuff that encased together. It's like impossible to fabricate that so that they fit so well in the way that they're shaped. But that's going to be another topic we're going to do on the
About
Game of Stones. Yeah, I'm actually going to bring some of the gentlemen from the show Ancient Aliens to talk about stone and cutting and
something I would love to mention that's coming up is, even though, you know, our dad left and it was very sad for me, I didn't have anybody to say, I miss dad, where's dad? And this is something, a lot of my life I've had a lot of sadness and not really understanding why am I so angry, or why am I, and so I've done a lot of healing, and there's something inside me that I've always wanted to know. What is it that really helps us to heal? How can I live my life with more joy, with more love? It's like I have this relentless drive, and I know that that's part of my mission, just like you have this relentless drive to also develop yourself and the industry, the marble industry, you know, the machinery industry. It's like when we discover that inner motivation, that drive, for me it's been about how can we create major healing with minor effort? How can we maximize the efficiency of whatever that wellness approach or healing approach? And so that's what, when people tell me, you know, what do you do? How do you help me? Over the past 28 years, I've taken a lot of different courses and trainings and certifications and yoga, you know.
Well, you put it simple
hypnosis.
one time before. It's like, what do you do? Well, I help people, and you said it very well. You said, I help people release their baggage, period. Like baggage. Everybody's got, I think, some baggage. It's like impossible not to. You know, for the most, even if you've had like what we call a padded life, or you see like people have had privileged lives, like maybe financially, but a lot of kids, like I remember growing up in our neighborhood, you know, where we grew up, and anybody from Miami knows that Miami's predominantly Latin. But the one little neighborhood that we grew up in, it's like American demographics, right? It's kind of like
Shores.
70% Anglo, like white American, and then, which we don't see color. And, you know, nowadays everything's, you know, classified and categorized, but we just grew up in the States. But the funny part was that when I left Miami Shores and I went to start hanging out in Miami as an adult growing up, I'd meet people from Miami, but like Kendall and other parts, and they'd ask me, they'd say, so are you tourist? Like, you're not from Miami? I'm like, yeah, I'm from Miami, but of course, like, our English was from Los Angeles, so it's not like the typical Miami accent. And also in Miami Shores too, people don't have that typical Miami. It's almost like Pleasantville, like it's its own little
heaven,
little neighborhood. The cool claim to fame of Miami Shores is like when you see the beginning of Miami Vice, the TV show. The TV show has that part where you see the really nice house on the water that's got the ice blocks, kind of like a wall, like a window. It's got the ice blocks. That house is in Miami Shores. It's like a block away from my buddy's house when we were growing up, which was an awesome neighborhood too. Like we had a great time. But yeah, you allow people, or you help people release their baggage, which is really.
I worked as a physical therapist first, so I started in physical therapy, and I just started noticing how a lot of my clients with chronic pain, chronic low back pain, chronic neck pain, they would talk to me a lot. It's kind of like when you go to the hairdresser and they're like your therapist, and I realized how a lot of people's low back tension, they're not necessarily working in the field to hurt their back. There's a lot of emotional pain that people are holding, like the low back has to do with how much are you your own best friend. Some people that are hard on themselves, or they don't feel supported in life, those are the people that tend to feel weaker in their low back. Or, for example, the shoulders, we carry burdens in our shoulders, the shoulds. So after working for 28 years, it's very evident that there's a pattern. Even with certain diagnoses like breast cancer, this part of the body, they say that we're harboring hurts, resentments. And so I started to be aware of how different disease and chronic stress affect the body. A lot of it based on our childhood, based on things that happened to us, traumas. And sometimes trauma is also being neglected, not being nurtured. So some people might be like, well, I don't have any trauma. You know, I'm a lawyer. I had a babysitter. I had a nanny, but I don't have any trauma. Nothing happened to me. And so I see a lot of clients that have a lot of tension that they just didn't feel heard as children, or there was nobody there to nurture them. And there's things that I realize today that we don't really talk about it, but it's what contributes, number one, to people's challenges.
Well, we're not like trained to look at that, right? Like nobody's trained to look at, you know, what is affecting you mentally that's helping you manifest a pain or some kind of burden or some feeling of uncomfort or anxiety. Nobody ever looks at. Everybody's like, well, let's look at your diet. Let's get a blood test. And nobody's really ever addressing, like what happened to you recently, you know, or what are you going through, right?
How was your childhood?
Because you never know. One thing that I've learned is like you never know what anybody's going through. So you have to try to be more patient, which I wasn't when I was younger. I'd snap at people and you know, because everybody's like trying to get to something. Everybody's stressed out in their own world, right? And so I realized like you never know. Like one day, one guy told me later, he's like, you know, when I was going through that, you know, I apologize. Blah, blah, blah. My wife had just been diagnosed with it, and I'm like, Jesus, why didn't you tell me? You know, like I apologize. I apologize. So
you know what's interesting too is it's not necessarily what happened to you. So rather than asking people what happened to you as a child, it's more appropriate to say, what meaning did you give to your own self because of what happened to you? So for example, my dad leaving when I was 15, which happened to you too, it's our dad, I made up a story that I must not be lovable. I must be worthless if my dad.
But you didn't
totally
consciously
left.
say that, obviously.
No,
That's
I
something
didn't
you figured
know.
out, like subconsciously. Your reaction was that message
With
was
a
the
lot
one
of therapy,
you were
yeah.
interpreting, right? And that's the
And
problem. A
so-
lot of people don't know consciously, too. That's the other thing, because we're proud and we want to be like invincible. So nobody really sits there to take the time. Where I think also we don't have the time, right? Like there's no time to think
Yeah, there's
about.
this false sense that we
Right.
have to get somewhere.
Right.
That
Right.
that is definitely prevalent in our country, especially because
Right.
I just got back from Thailand, where it seems like everybody's just having a great day, and they have a lot less, physically, money wise. It's not, it's a third world country, but even this concept of happiness, like what really makes us happy. And so I think there's a lot of people that are overachievers. Like I wanted to be the best in my physical therapy. I had to get summa cum laude, best grades, and it was coming from a place of insecurity that I wasn't enough, or even trying to prove everything to everyone. And so that's why I have so many certifications.
Right.
But it worked towards me in the end because I got to learn many different ways of healing and then what really does work.
Right. Which isn't to say that also you can be motivated and want to be the best at something for the passion of that field or whatever, right? It's not always from an insecurity.
No.
But that definitely does fuel a lot of people for sure. And we're always like the term keeping up with the Joneses, and you got that pressure, and that's kind of something normal. And yeah, for sure in the States I notice that when I go to Italy and I visit our suppliers and our friends and our cousins that are in Rome, right? Like everybody's more like, we probably don't need the extra pair of Nikes, and we maybe don't need to get the souped up car model, but we're gonna have a good time, get off work and have a
3
really
p.m.
really good 5-hour long dinner. Like that's what they
Take an
enjoy.
extra nap.
But it's true. Like this is what I did learn as a kid, because I got sent in the summers to Italy when I was younger, because you guys were a little older. So mom wanted to kind of make sure had something to do in the summer, right? She was always working. You guys were gone too, a lot of the times, but I would go to Italy and spend time with my cousins in Rome, which helped me later. I didn't know I was going to end up in the stone industry, but that helped out
Life happens,
tremendously
right?
with the languages, and allowed me to be able to communicate, and which is awesome. I'm very blessed and fortunate that I grew up speaking Spanish and Italian, and then I took French in high school and learned Portuguese with Brazilian customers, and I have friendships like with all these different, and it's really cool and neat to open up into another language. So that rhythm of life, usually I see from immigrants, is that they do have that more appreciation for the experience or the memory, which is what I kind of try to impart with my clients in my events. Is like, I want to create some cool experiences. If I
keep growing.
yeah, that's why we have this party bus, right?
Yeah.
This customer experience bus is what we like to call it. But this bus, because when we would pick people up at the airport to go show them shops in Florida that had our equipment or whatever, the experience wasn't that great. It was a little informal. It's like an Uber driver kind of like, hey, let's talk about machinery while we drive to the shop. And it wasn't very interactive. So I figured the amount that we're spending on renting Denali's and Tahoes, and sometimes 3 or 4 people would come from a company. And so you're packed, kind of crammed in this SUV. We said, let's get this. We can watch videos of the equipment on the TV screen while we're on their way to the shop, and get a little bit better experience on the interaction, and get to see what people are like. And so that's what we try to focus on, is the experience too. It's a balance of not just work, let's do the numbers, goodbye. You also want to have a good rapport with everybody. And I try to impart that to my people in the company. Treat everybody the same, just be the same. I try to be the same, whether I'm talking to the operator, employee of a customer, to a supplier, to my own employee, whatever level they are. Everybody's a person, and everybody's equal.
Well, I mean, it's interesting how we come from the same upbringing, and how no matter what, I keep learning. I wish to keep growing. I wish to keep evolving. And I see how in your profession as an entrepreneur, and the machines, you're constantly wanting to evolve the whole industry. And there's something in us that we share. And I don't know if it's like genetic, or I feel like our mom definitely was always next leveling up, moving to a better apartment, a better home in her own way. And I feel that is really important for our mental health, to keep on believing in yourself, and that ultimately it's the world, the nature of things really does want us to succeed. And somehow we both wound up not becoming victims, but becoming victorious in our own professions. And I'm not totally sure what sets people apart, but there's this inner drive that I have more than ever also is with all the suffering in the world. From all the years of practicing being love and learning about healing, I tell Joe, how can I support also more the entrepreneurs? I work with men, I work with women, I work with couples, and I help people to remember that we do have within us this technology on how to relax ourselves, calm ourselves, focus more, and it's up to us to learn how to amplify the hormone of love, which is the hormone of healing. And so to me, I look at it more
Is that
today.
oxytocin?
It's called oxytocin.
Men have it too, right?
Yes.
But if we have too much, we start breastfeeding.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's the love hormone, but it's also the bonding hormone. And if you think about it, the more you have this hormone flowing in your body, you're going to be more connected.
Where can we buy it?
Well, that's the
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Nature made it so that if you just look at yourself in the mirror, it's actually interesting how there's easy hacks on how to amplify it. So if anybody here likes to sing, play an instrument, dance,
I actually read that, and
massage
and some
yourself.
some of my friends make fun of me because sometimes on my private social media, I'll post on the story, like, you'll see like a cat that's jumping on the back of a goose, and it's like a baby cat, and the goose is like with a baby cat. But because I read this article, it says that if you just watch like kids, like babies or like small animals or whatever, that it actually triggers neurologically oxytocin in your, like a feel good hormone, and it relaxes you
Yes.
to see something peaceful.
Yeah,
and I
if
think
anybody
that's
has a cat and you pet
Yeah.
your cat, pet your dog.
and then I see that definitely affects people. I think with like social media, like, what do you think about this, the effect of social media on people? Because I notice
We're
that
starving
sometimes
for
in my
connection.
feed, I'm like, what the hell is going on? And like a few seconds, I see a video come up, and it's like somebody sponsoring something, because you can't always choose like exactly what's on your feed.
Right.
And then you see this car, and it's just going by another car, and it just flies in the air, and it flips like this, and it hits a pole, and it literally just obliterates into smithereens. And like, you just witnessed like something drastically terrible.
Well, it's important
And
for
the
us
impact,
to be
I'm
conscious.
like, oh Jesus Christ! Like, I'm not gonna
take that off.
watch social media anymore.
Well, more than ever,
And-
it's important for us to be conscious of what we are speaking into our minds. So I work also as a mindset coach. I do hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming. So basically, the way that we speak
What is that
to
exactly?
ourselves. Neurolinguistic programming is a way of speaking where we're influencing
That's
people.
NLP,
Yeah,
right?
neuro-linguistic programming.
NLP.
So politicians use it all the time, and we don't even know it. So, for example,
So it can be used to manipulate others.
we are programming constantly by what we say. So when somebody says, my back is killing me, or when a
You're
parent...
reinforcing that that notion.
Our words are powerful. And that's part of the power of our words. It's one of the courses, the classes that I teach, the power of our words. And so basically whatever you believe is what you're going to interpret, what you're going to experience. Because sometimes people say, the world is ending, the world is this. And so if that's what you believe, you're probably going to have more stress hormones circulating in your body. And so I believe that everything is happening right now. The truth is coming out in many different ways because we're meant to be transformed. So we haven't been doing things in the most aligned way for us to thrive. And so by default, nature wants to thrive. Nature wants to create. Just like everything grows, the dead leaves fall. And that's what's happening right now. So we can just believe in the power of ourselves that, I better be conscious about what kind of words, what am I speaking in my mind that nobody can see? Am I my own friend or am I my own enemy? And so when people say that we are at war, this war, a lot of us are at war inside ourselves. A lot of us are hard on ourselves. A lot of us don't feel like we're enough. I know this because I work with people every day, And so what is my relationship to my own self? Am I my own best friend? Do I lift myself up when I'm feeling down? How many of us know how to get ourselves out of the hole? And so I see you constantly uplifting yourself. You just have this in yourself. And that's the part where I think some people naturally have this. And if you don't, you can become conscious on how can I lift myself up more. But our dad, he was very positive. You know, I know I get that from my dad.
Yeah.
He was a salsero, and the little bit of years that I got to know my dad, he taught me how to play ping pong. You know, he was very passionate about dancing.
Well, exercise too, and
fitness. He's like Jack LaLanne.
He never drank.
Yeah, so
He
it's
never had any kind of
incredible
like habit,
we influence each other.
except for music, mixing tapes.
And yeah, he might not have been the greatest guy at, you know, supporting a family, but that's another thing that I've learned to
Or being like a father
be
figure, like
grateful
fatherly.
for what people do have to offer. Instead of focusing on the negativity, it's not going to make us feel good. So whenever I judge myself, or I judge the government, or I judge a person, I'm hurting myself. And that's been the biggest shift for me. I'm not motivated to gossip or to say negative things about other people, because I'm the one hurting myself, and I love myself more, that I just wish to focus on how can I be of service? How can I raise the love on the planet, the Alva love? And so that I brainwashed myself to be more loving.
Well, you program yourself, right?
I've programmed myself. Thank you.
Because programming too, right? People say brainwashing, but I believe in the principle of autosuggestion. Like that's worked out great for me. And so autosuggestion is pretty much...
Which is hypnosis.
If anybody's read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, great book. It's got a chapter called autosuggestion. And that chapter talks about basically repeating messages to yourself. And it could be in your mind, or it can be out loud when you're by yourself. That basically will, if you repeat things enough to yourself, there comes a point where your subconscious will snap and it'll just believe it. And once you believe things, that's where manifestation comes from, is that once you believe things, then you're just more apt or propense to make the right moves and decisions to lead to the outcome.
If you believe it, you will receive it.
And that's why I tell people too, and my friends and loved ones around me, when they worry too much, I go, what's the definition of worrying, right? And a lot of people, they say, well, it's, thinking about something that might happen that's bad, right? Well, what does that definition really mean? You're visualizing the negative outcome, but nobody can tell the future. So if you think about it, whatever you're visualizing in the future, positive or negative, it's a lie, because you don't know what could happen. You're not Nostradamus, you're not omnipotent, right? So since you don't know and it's a lie in the positive direction. Like visualize the positive outcome. Cut out all the worrying, because it's just energy that's wasting. You're burning off the negative energy of worrying. It's like
and this is where it helps to know the science of love, the physiology of love. And so we're all energetic vibrational beings. And if I'm vibrating gratitude, appreciation, if I am embodying my highest version of myself every day, I'm gonna attract the same. And so if I'm a person that's worrying, that's negative, that's not in abundance, I'm gonna attract what I am. And so this is the part where we each can just choose to see, how can I grow from this? How can I learn from this? What opportunity is this bringing me? Instead of, oh, this is bad, this is negative. So what if that doesn't even exist? Whatever that was, it just is that. And then how can I learn from that experience? And that's what I've done, basically. I have programmed myself to align to love, to align to abundance and acceptance, and whatever I'm not strong in, I know that I can learn, and it just takes motivation, focus, practice, patience, and a loving kindness, which before I didn't have myself. I was very hard on myself. And I'm grateful that I've softened in these later years. Thank God.
You've definitely been a beacon to a lot of people. You know, you have a great community that follows you. A lot of your friends are really great people. You had a huge impact on me, like, of all the things we had going down at that time when Mom wasn't around, and Lewis was getting into trouble a little bit, which that was short-lived, but you pretty much were always there and I was really proud to have you to pick me up from school in 8th grade, or take me to the movies with my buddies. And my buddies were always like, hey man, can I have a ride home? Is your sister driving? Is your sister picking us up? Like that.
I love you.
And then, thanks. I love you too. When I was in high school too, and you started dating Enzo, we, that was, you would take me literally like everywhere, which I really appreciated, because if they were going out to dinner, they would always take me around. I was like a third wheel, like your whole like, which, sorry for being in
Oh,
like
it's great.
around all the time. But that was a huge influence on me, because by the time I was already in high school, I had been to like, you guys, they loved, like, that was their thing. They loved to try out all different restaurants and go to different restaurants all the time.
I love to eat.
At that time, you were in college, right? So you guys were gonna go to like every restaurant in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale. I'd go with you guys. And by the time I was in high school now, well, it kind of taught me, like, it applies today to when I do events with customers, or that we go out to dinner, or the things that I order, and like all of that. Like, I had a really good basis for food. Food is like a major experience, right? So is going to a restaurant. So is going to a nice place. Going to a nice place in Miami.
Eating a meal and feeling full, that's oxytocin too, the love hormone.
Right.
We
right.
love ourselves from eating.
And it brings people together, and you share
food.
experiences. So by the time I was in high school already, I had a great background on like a great experience of food and like variety, and then going to Italy. Like, we're really blessed going to South America, traveling a lot. We also had that kind of, we were lucky to do that. And I think that gives us, gave me, like a lot of experience when I was really young. I was lucky that I also started young. Like, I started my business when I was 21 years old. And I remember that we had come back from Italy. You guys got married in Rome in the year 2000. Remember?
Yeah.
That was like an awesome trip where the whole family, we went to Rome. Unfortunately, Alberto, he got into a car accident. Our cousin,
I know,
Alberto, got into the day before. Like, luckily nobody got hurt, but who was in the car? It was like dad, mom, Louis. I think everybody was in.
Life is just, for people with mental, when you wanted me to talk about mental health, everything is really just your choice of how you wish to see things. And so the more people just say, well, this happened to me, that happened to me, we can't change the past, but what did I learn from that trauma? What did I learn from that not having my father? What did I learn from not having money as a child? Maybe there was struggles. And the more we can just choose to see how did it benefit me? What perspective do I have differently because of what was given to me? If you could believe that there's this divine creator, this, whether you want to call it God, source, that loves you, that maybe that had to happen to you, because like today I work with people with sexual trauma. I myself had a non-consensual, not uplifting first sexual experience. We were raised Catholic, never talked about that. And I have chosen to, now I work with women, and there's actually a lot of men too that have had inappropriate touch at a young age that we just don't talk about it. And so if I never
now
had
that's
that
started
trauma,
to come out a lot more, right? Like, now there's a lot more on child sex trafficking, and how much the percentages of like children that unfortunately get abused, and most of the time by a family member
with the Catholic
or like somebody
Church
close
too, and the priests, all these things are coming out.
Yeah,
so
just in general across the board, it's pretty prevalent,
everything.
right? And luckily, we have the honor of like having met and become friends with Paul Hutchinson, the producer of the movies
Liberating Humanity.
Liberating Humanity Foundation, and the movie Sound of Freedom.
Yes.
The documentary that came out in July 4th of 2023. That was very powerful, and that guy's a hero.
He's an angel.
I mean, he's a super successful entrepreneur, runs a multi-billion-dollar real estate fund, and he got involved in special ops, to save children. So Liberating Humanity is an awesome organization
We're not our
to donate
past. I think that's the biggest thing for people is, and we're no more special than whoever's watching this or the next person. Each one of us is just as powerful. It's up to us to believe in ourselves that we are that. That's all that makes people different, is choosing to believe that you can have a better life. And that's what our mom did. Even though her husband left when 3 kids, she always kept going, and her connection to God is very strong. And I think witnessing that too, whether it's God, a higher power,
devout Catholic.
I lean back on support of Creator, and it's incredible how faith, just remembering that you are loved, even though it might not seem that way. If you have faith, that is powerful. That's really powerful. So
Yeah.
I love you.
Love you.
And I hope people benefit from hearing us, hearing our stories. And
So, a few takeaways before we go. I think that what I would say or recommend is try to focus on positive energy, right?
well, to remember that we are love, our science of love, the physiology of love, you're going to thrive more when you love. So what does that mean, love? Love is acceptance. So accept your past. So you might be like, nah, Michelle, I can't accept my past. So then accept that you are having a hard time accepting your past. That's where it begins. Accept the unacceptable. Forgive the unforgivable. Make that your mission and make peace with your parents. I say this, it might gross you out, but Joe is my father's sperm and my mother's egg, and so am I. Because when I tell my daughter this, so how can you say you hate your father, you hate your mother? If we don't make peace with our parents, we're going to always be living in resistance of life. And that's powerful. So I made that my mission the last year of my mom's life. My mom was really a tough cookie, and I've found so much more love in my life, so much more peace in my life from just choosing to accept
So
how
basically,
she was.
we're going to be more positive, be more cup half full rather than half empty.
And you
right?
just choose to be that
And
way.
also, one of my mentors and good friends, David Meltzer, he always brought up a good point. He says, what attracts a lot of positivity to your world is if you just have a feeling internally of gratitude.
Yes.
So he said, wake up every day and before you go to sleep and thank God or thank the universe for whatever it is that you do have, right? Like you do have your health, you do have your family.
Unanswered prayers. So something
Right.
I say is like when my daughter and I, after my divorce, she was very angry, and that's really sadness. So I would say, thank you, God, in advance for my daughter and I getting along better. Thank you, Creator, in advance for me having 6 new clients before the end of this month. Thank you in advance for my new home that is right in front of the ocean. So that's another one that's really powerful. Your future pacing, that's neurolinguistic.
And
program.
another thing that I've also found really useful for entrepreneurs especially is David Meltzer also talks about this a lot. He says, look, ask for help. He's like, or how can you be helpful? So if you ask constantly to other people too, how can I be of service? How can I help you?
That's abundance.
It's really high frequency, so a lot of positivity will come to you.
Even if you don't have a lot of money or you don't have enough of what you really want, there's always something you can give. And when you're giving, you're in abundance. And it's our nature to be giving. And so the other thing I say a lot is massage yourself. I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel, self-loving actions, because a lot of us, we don't give back, especially the entrepreneur who's always wanting to give and create and give out. And so when was the last time you just put your hand on your chest and just felt your heart and just close your eyes and thank your heart?
What's your YouTube channel, by the way?
Michelle Alva TV.
Okay.
And so at night, before you go to sleep in bed, you could just put your hand over your heart, thank your heart for all the blood that it pumps to your whole body, and thank your heart for all the love that it creates, and thanking your whole body, touching yourself with love. And you know how we all want to be loved? Well, we can only receive what we can receive with ourselves. And so I give myself a lot of hugs. I also hug a pillow at night and I just say, thank you, Michelle. I do this a lot to myself because I was really hard on myself. And I'm grateful for that too, because I see how me having this relationship with myself affects my daughter. And my daughter's pretty healthy. She has a really awesome self-esteem. Today at age 20, I see how she respects herself in her relationships with her friends. And I know that parents embodying these principles of love, acceptance, gratitude, that's the greatest gift you could give everybody, is your own self-loving relationship. Because you're going to wish great things for people if you're feeling great inside.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. This is our episode for today, and we hope that we were able to bring a little value to you and that you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.